The key. The old lady stared out into the ocean below the cliff she was standing on, her hand clutching a golden key that hung around her neck. She fingered the smooth and intricate surface with a slight tremor in her hands. She felt ancient. She was 95 years old today, and that meant she would soon have to use the key she held so gingerly between her fingertips. It was secured by a deep red satin ribbon that she tied at the back of her neck. It hung there during the day and laid on her bedside table at night. The key held her deepest fears and her destiny at the same time. She was old. She was tired. She was ready to use it. The next few days were going to be challenging ones for her. She would be hosting her granddaughter, who was coming to celebrate her birthday. Her own son didn't feel the need to visit. He just sent his 20-year-old, naive college student of a daughter, Myra, over to visit her out on the desolate island the old lady lived on. Years ago, she and her husband had moved out there to retire in peace. They spent their retirement funds on the giant castle on the cliff. Little did they know at the time, they had bought a cursed castle. It started with the violent screaming and the loud banging at night. The sleepless nights were unbearable enough. Add ghostly apparitions and floating objects to the mix, and you officially have yourself a very haunted home. They had psychics and mediums out to help rid them of the spirits. All ran out in terror, screaming about the curse. One helpful psychic took pity upon them to explain precisely what was going on. At a pub, far away from the castle. "Look, you have some very malevolent spirits lurking in there. I recommend a priest to perform an exorcism. There's no way a basic smudging would do." The psychic took a long swig of whiskey before continuing. "It's a torture and a murder castle you have there. Unspeakable acts were committed upon innocent people that were preyed upon. There is no rest for those souls. They want to continue to commit these acts. They won't stop until their thirst for blood and deviance is quenched, and I am not sure if it ever will be." 2 days later, the poor psychic died of a drug overdose. Too many things were seen that could never be unseen, haunted him. They took the advice and called the priest. He ran out of the castle and straight for the cliff the old woman was standing on. He took his own life to escape the evil within. Helpless, with nowhere left to turn, her husband went to confront the malicious beings. In exchange for the eternal torture of his soul, they would tone down the haunting for his wife. But when her time was up, she would have to give her soul as well. She was given a key to the attic, where the spirits performed their most gruesome acts. Her husband disappeared up there and locked the door behind him, never to be seen again. She never dared open it, as the haunting had become like a dull rattle in the wind. Momentary peace at the loss of her husband. She heard the car pull up on the gravel drive behind her and hobbled her frail body over to greet her granddaughter. Her cane could barely support her anymore. She was slow, but in mostly good health of a woman her age. Well, for now at least. "Hi, Grandma," her granddaughter said in a monotonous tone as she grabbed her suitcase out of the trunk in her car and slammed it shut. She didn't seem to really want to be there. "Hello, my dear," the old woman replied with a smile. It was good to see another face, even if it was of someone who wasn't happy to see hers. The housekeeper hurried out to help with the girl's suitcase. "Dinner is ready if you would like to head to the dining room. she said as she towed the large suitcase up the stairs and into the castle. Sure. Myra shrugged her shoulders and walked ahead of her grandmother quickly. Her father must have had to bribe the poor girl to be here. The old woman hurried as much as she could to keep up. When she finally reached the dining room, the girl was already seated at the table, glaring at her phone. I have like 0 signal here. She pouted and slammed her phone down on the table as her plate was being set before her. She looked over to grandmother as the older woman was struggling to get into her seat. The housekeeper rushed over to help her to her seat. Thank you, the old lady said quietly as she tried to sit as straight as she could at the table. Myra's eyes zeroed in on the key around her grandmother's neck. What's that key for? She asked. Oh, this? Her grandmother patted it inside. Yeah, Myra nodded. It's just a key, nothing special, the old lady said softly. If it wasn't special, you wouldn't keep it around your neck, Grandma. The girl snapped and rolled her eyes. The lady got a sad, pained look in her eyes and just sat there. Whatever, Myra muttered and began to pick at her food. After dinner, Myra immediately retired to her room. She didn't even bother to say goodnight. She just muttered under her breath that she was tired from the trip and made her escape. The old woman hobbled to her room and said goodnight to her housekeeper. She sat on the edge of her bed for a good while before she finally broke down in tears. She was so lonely. The only time family came to visit, they treated her horribly. What happened to her son? Why was he so busy with his life that he couldn't stop and come see her? Why did everyone seem to treat her as if she didn't exist, like she was a burden? They would probably come to the castle after she was long gone, looking for something valuable. Well, there was literally nothing left. The joke was on them. When she was gone, it would be a miracle if they could sell a cursed mansion and get any money from her. She collapsed on the bed, suddenly so very tired. She was soon fast asleep, snoring softly away. It was after midnight when her bedroom door slowly creaked open. Myra appeared in the doorway and made her way silently into the room. She looked down at her pathetic grandmother. She had one mission while she was here: find out what the old lady was hiding and possibly hoarding. They couldn't wait for her to die. She was absent-minded enough that Myra could swipe something valuable and the old lady would never notice it was gone. Myra scanned the room and in the dark was able to locate the key that her grandmother always kept around her neck. It was on the bedside table. When she was talking to the housekeeper later that evening, the dumb woman spilled to her that the key was for the attic. Her grandmother kept something secret up there, and no one was allowed to enter. So that meant it was Jackpot City. Myra swiped the key and darted out of the room quietly. She made her way up the never-ending stairs until she reached the top. At the end, a giant door laid before her. This was it. With the flashlight on her phone, she unlocked the door and entered the dusty room. She searched for a light, but before she could find one, a great force thrust her forward and she heard the door slam behind her. A flash of light, similar to lightning, illuminated the room, and for a split second, she looked up to see a rotted corpse hanging from the rafters above her. Grandpa? He had hung himself, up here. He was here all along. They always thought that Grandpa just left the family behind, as Grandma was always going on and on about how the castle was haunted and cursed. He also disowned his own son, Myra's father, for doing a shady business deal with Grandpa's money. But here, he had hung himself all along, and Grandma had kept it locked away from everyone. She needed to get out of here and call her father. She needed to have Grandma be the one locked up now, that crazy woman. Myra tried to stand up, but a force held her down. She was paralyzed. Who is this? The old lady sent a young girl instead of herself? A voice called out. I don't care. It's a soul. It works. Hello, lovely. Let's get you ready. I have something up here for you. Huh? Myra was confused. She was able to stand, and she saw a ladder in front of her. Go on, the voice called. Without seeming to be in control of her own body movements, she climbed up the ladder. This is for you, my dear. Isn't it lovely? The voice flashed a diamond necklace before her eyes. Yes. She was mesmerized by the sparkle of the necklace. Put it on, the voice commanded. She reached out and pulled the necklace over her head and let it lay at her neck in all its dazzling beauty. She touched it admiringly. So pretty, the voice said eerily. Slowly, the necklace began shifting up her neck. It was getting tighter and tighter. It was at her throat, and she was starting to gasp for air. Let me help you, the voice said before a force pushed her forward, and she fell with the diamond necklace suddenly turning into a noose like her grandpa's and snapping her neck. Myra! Myra! She heard her grandpa's voice call out. She opened her eyes and was shocked to see him standing before her. What's going on? She pleaded. 1,000 lifetimes of torture, my dear. She was able to see now. 5 dark shadows before her. Suddenly, they all lunged for her. Sadly, after her death, she had lost her ability to scream properly. Her screams just echoed throughout her mind as she felt pain and agony she had never before experienced. As her screams echoed throughout her mind, they also echoed throughout the cursed castle. Day and night, the walls reverberated with her blood-curdling screams. Her grandma didn't hear those screams as she died peacefully in her bed, able to find eternal rest. But not Myra. She will go on screaming forever.